I'd like to talk about my road trip to Seattle. Sick of working myself to death, I took the first vacation of my life last year. A foolish sense of optimism carried me across the western United States on an adventure that seriously made me rethink everything I thought I knew about the world. I loved Seattle, even with the hip original hippie neighborhoods and the perma-carnival atmosphere of Pike Place Market. The bridge toll was a highlight. Getting out of Seattle, however, was a total nightmare. That day, it was late and I was on my way to a campsite in my moped. The site was famous for its numerous ghost stories and folktales. I was warned by my friends when I planned this trip, but I chose this place to have a peaceful time for myself, away from all the noise and the stress of life. Some miles south and a little east of the city, there's a free campground called Swamp Wells Horse Camp, south of Portland. It's most often used by horse riders. There's a gravel road off of a service road and then a few crooked unpaid paths off of that. My moped broke down twice on the way, and the trail markers were all either bent, broken, or faded. That was the last sign of warning I received before reaching the place. At last, I reached the campsite only by sensing the disgusting smell left by the horses. I set up my junior scout tent in the fading twilight. Mine was the only one there. I placed them all myself. The place was really quiet, and believe me, I thought I had come down to the right place to spend my time. After a quick meal of apples, I did my usual travel log spiel to my video camera by lantern light before turning in. I'm not sure how long I slept. Something had disturbed my sleep, but I was too groggy to remember what it had been. I sat in a stupor, too alert to fall back asleep, but too sleepy to be totally awake. Something brushed the side of my tent and suddenly I was more awake than I had ever been. It was not that breezy that night. I had done plenty of camping by that point. I was familiar with the sounds of the usual nighttime critters, from raccoons to coyotes. Nothing had ever bothered me in my tent before, just snuffled around the camp before wandering off and leaving me be. From the sound of the footsteps, it was walking on two legs, like it was looking for something. That was a first. My mind immediately jumped to the worst possible conclusion: a bear. Sitting there in the dark with my heart beating in my throat, I had no way of telling which species I was dealing with. Shout out or play dead? Again, I was not sure how to react at that moment. I was 30 yards from a sturdy cement block outhouse that might be a better shelter. As quietly as I dared, I slipped my boots on and got ready to dash. The tent zipper seemed impossibly loud in the night as I worked it open centimeter by centimeter. I moved agonizingly slowly. My face was filled with horror. Once outside, I craned my neck around to see if the bear, if that's what it was between me and the outhouse. With the incredible illumination of the Milky Way, I could see the campground clearly all the way to the tree line. There was nothing out there. I could still feel something watching me. It was like feeling an insect crawl along the back of my neck. There was no logical way for me to know something had its eyes on me, but out here in the dark, in the middle of nowhere all alone, I couldn't dismiss it. Still on high alert, I crept along and tried not to crunch the gravel under my feet too loudly. The outhouse was still my best bet. The door was propped open by a stone inside, but there was a heavy-duty bolt lock. The outhouse was quite small, and I would have to spend the night surrounded by an intolerable smell, but I figured that was a fair trade for not getting mauled or eaten. My hand was on the latch when I heard the awful crunch of footsteps in the gravel behind me. Whatever was watching charged towards me. I kicked the stone propping the door open out of the way and slammed the heavy metal door shut, no longer caring how much noise I made. Whatever was on the other side had thumbs. Something tugged on the door as I struggled to bolt it shut. I won, but it was close. There was a metal mesh along the top of the structure for ventilation. Through it I heard the bellows of heavy breathing that matched my own. All this time, I didn't realize that my phone was back in my tent because I'm an idiot. There was no way to tell time. The same stupid impulse that brought me out here in the first place kicked in. I was shaking like a scared cat, but I gathered some strength. I had to know. So, I attempted to communicate. Hello? Silence. Maybe they hadn't heard me. But then, hello? The voice was feminine like my own, and the sound of it was a kick to the gut. I couldn't even tell you why it made me so uneasy. The sensation was like when you're walking upstairs and you're expecting another step, but your foot comes down on an empty space. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was alone, I said. I'm alone. Every syllable was jarring. I'm sorry I freaked out. I didn't think there was anyone else here. Sorry, I'm here. You think now that if I knew it was another camper, I would have opened the door, but I never did. Some deeply buried instinct kept me from taking my hand off the bolt. You scared the crap out of me. Are there more tent sites out in the trees or something? She uttered. I'm something. There are more. Her words made me sick to my stomach. From her odd syntax, I guess English wasn't her first language. Do you need to go? Use the bathroom, I mean, because I'm gonna be in here for a while. That wasn't a lie. I wouldn't have opened that door if it was my own mother on the other side. The voice continued. You need to go. Her grasp of English was improving with every sentence. There was something weird about that. Look, I'm sorry if I scared you, but you started it by creeping around in the dark. I won't come out. Can you go somewhere else? I'll be gone in the morning, I promise. I just wanted to sleep in peace. You need to be gone. I promise you I will creep in the dark. You won't be here in the morning. Fear cemented my mouth shut. The more I spoke, the more she did, and I didn't want to hear her voice anymore. I'm sure that makes me sound like a bigot or something, but I had the feeling I was feeding words to her, and the feeling was not pleasant. I felt like she was hungry for them. The same instinct that told me to keep quiet the first time kept me from running my dumb mouth off again. I was either dealing with someone who was not mentally well, or was something else entirely. There was a threat in her words, or the way she spoke them, and I had no doubt she would be able to carry out that threat. I kept my hands on the bolt while they cramped and repeated attempts were made to open the door. I was fighting with something that was keen to take me out on that night. The door was being banged over and over, and then stopped at some point. The first rays of sun crept sluggishly through the mesh at the top of the walls of my shelter. It wasn't until the sun was strong enough to make me sweat in my self-imposed prison that I felt brave? Stupid? Enough to speak again. Hello? Are you still out there? Hello? Anyone? There was no answer, which was the best outcome I could hope for. I opened the door. My tent was untouched, at least from a distance. The oppressive feeling of being watched had dissipated. I dressed and broke down camp in record time. My moped cranked to life, but it wasn't until I went to put my helmet on that I saw the footprint. I'd kicked that rock pretty far. It was close to my bike. Naturally, I went over to it. I had to know. In a clear outline of fresh mud, there was a single print on the smooth gray of the stone. Not human, but a hoof like that of an unshod horse or goat. It was so fresh, so vivid. It hadn't been there last night when I used the bathroom before I'd gone to bed. In the soft mud in front of the outhouse door were more of the same, some of them on top of my own boot prints. Time had passed since then. I still wonder what it was and who she was. Was she some kind of species we've never heard of? Or a monster that escaped from secret research labs? At least now, I know that the folklores or the legends may not be lies. They keep on going as people like me continue to experience these type of incidents. If you want to go looking for whatever the hell it was, be my guest. Just be careful with your words out there, because I figured out what was wrong with that voice when I watched the playback of my travel log video. It was my own.